So do you remember a little while ago where I did the video going through messages the developer of Fear and Hunger, Miro, had posted in the Discord, just to give people who aren't in the Discord, just show people what's coming up, any of the features he's talked about, and some general cool stuff. Because he does mention, like he's mentioned some of his thought process, some behind the scenes stuff that's really cool. So I wanted to make a second video about that because there's been I think my last video was like 3 months ago. And there's been a lot happened since then. I just went through and I just had a look at all his messages. I stalked him for a little bit. And of course, to start with, yeah, Miro's laptop melted. His work laptop, because he works from a laptop, something happened to it and he lost a lot of progress. He lost about a month's worth of progress. So that's why the update was bumped back a bit, because he had to remake like a whole month's worth of work. He failed the coin toss, exactly. And yeah, this was a little while ago. This is at the start of April. The good news is Miro has started backing up stuff. He got an external hard drive, and he says he's been backing up stuff online as well. So this won't happen again. So unfortunately, he lost a bit of work. And as you'll see later, there's some stuff that he made that hasn't been remade yet. And we'll talk a bit about that when we get to it. In positive news, since then, we've actually seen part of the upcoming update. So yes, this is another screenshot that Miro showed us from this upcoming area. It's he said it's not a submarine, so it looks like a big sort of fishing trawler. We haven't seen much else, really. The only other things we've seen, I actually talked about last time, and I'll link the video here. But there's going to be underground cavern areas, and I think that's about all we know. And then there will be some light tweaks to existing areas. The light tweaks were one of the things that were lost, so I wouldn't expect many tweaks to existing areas to be in that update unless Miro decides to bump it back a bit. So doubly confirmed, fish-based diet coming to Termina, because in the original game you can see Vile, the pigman, gassing fish, and people were like, well, how come there's no fish food, right? No, how come we can't like make fish pies and stuff like that? And Miro's like, all right then, you want fish, you got fish. And he's posted a couple of icons. So we got a common roach, and we have rainbow trout. So there's at least a couple coming. And he said that there will be some tweaks, but it is a lot simpler than it seems in the video to act when you're actually playing. And of course, somebody asked, is fishing limited to fish as rewards, or can you get other items as well? And Miro mysteriously responded, I think it's a nice place to hide some secrets too. Ooh. Salmon snake confirmed. Is it? You reckon? What do you reckon, guys? And you may have noticed in the background of the video, this creepy looking face. Somebody asked about it, and they asked, is it a reference to something? And he's like, no, it's just, he looked at old vintage photos of carnivals, and a lot of paintings at the time were just oddly specific and weird. If you're wondering, it's not a reference to anything in particular, it just looks cool. I hate it, I know, right? It's so creepy. This thing's gonna be staring at you the whole time while you're fishing. Miro is pretty active in the Discord, and people often ask him what he's working on, and he doesn't spoil anything. He doesn't talk about lore, and he doesn't spoil a lot of stuff, but he is actually pretty forthcoming about what he's working on. So in terms of the next update in general, it's mostly going to focus on replayability. So he wanted another alternate route into the city so you can have some variety in choosing your early game route. Originally, I thought about spicing up the late game too, just like the effigies, but he lost that content and got a bit sidetracked and started working on another area instead. And he says, I think I'll change my plans a bit, and instead of late game spicing, I'll create some randomization between playthroughs. Like the location of the effigies can vary a little. So you wouldn't have to go through the same areas in every single playthrough, but there would be a few alternate places to go instead. Along with those, there are some minor additions too that won't have as big of an impact, but are cool too. After the update is out, I'll start working on new characters seriously and some other stuff. My plans can change, obviously, like how I got sidetracked with this update. I just made a one-off area for a certain minigame, but the aesthetics of that place were too good for some small little area. I had to expand it a bit. So the fishing village was originally just supposed to be a little minigame area, but he liked it so much he expanded it out. So it's got the fishing village, it's got the carnival, and we have caves coming as well, so that's pretty cool. People were just talking about how weird the fishing area is, right? And someone says, thank you, Orange, for putting in weirder props. And Orange says, I know I already dismissed the circus scene once before, but I wanted an interesting backdrop for the minigame, and things fell into place on their own, and here we are. When I started thinking that this area is too interesting to pass off for just a one-off minigame area, I started expanding it. I think all the new areas added to the game for this update are visually more distinct than the ones in the original release. When somebody asked that, does that mean the pre-existing ones will need to be refitted to match the craziness? Orange says, no, I don't think so. I wanted to keep a certain low-key feel to places to keep the city somewhat grounded. Silent Hill really is the main inspiration behind the overall city, and its areas are pretty basic to some extent. I like that feel personally. Although, I did originally tweak one existing area a bit, but that's lost content. I'll probably remake that stuff again later. I did like the tweaks. So when he says lost content, that means when his laptop exploded. He lost that bit of that work he did. So yeah, that's why I think we probably won't get any major tweaks to existing areas in the upcoming update. But yeah, the new areas that are being added are going to be very interesting. They're going to be very different. So I think that's pretty cool. But unfortunately, probably no straight up circus in town, right? just a fishing carnival. But I think that'd be pretty sick anyway, right? Oh yeah, here's the boat again. Here's one of the new areas. So you can see how you can immediately see how distinct it is from the areas in the city. Like it's completely different. The colors are completely different. Like the layout's going to be completely different too. So like, actually going into a boat is a pretty big change. So that's going to be pretty interesting. If it's a boat, it might not be a boat. Maybe it's like a factory or something. Who knows? It looks like a boat. I'm just saying it's a boat. Yeah, so people were asking about characters. So asking specifically about Tanaka and other characters. And Aaron says, no, I haven't started working on the characters. I want to stick to the original update plans, even if it has some bumps in the road. Although I did stray from my original plan already with some things. I thought some things were visually too interesting to just pass off as one-off quick areas, and things get expanded a little. And someone said, yeah, it is a lot of work making playable characters. And Aaron said, yeah, there's a ton of sprites, some coding, and a lot of dialogue to be added. All the party talks take a lot of time to make, and other events too. There's an insane amount that goes into making a character playable when you think about it. Like you just think about what each character actually does when they're in your party. You got all the different battle sprites. They hold all the different weapons, which is an insane amount of work. All the different dialogue when you can keep them in like the train and the pre-heval bop, and what you've got the unique scenes that they all appear in and the unique party talks. It's a ridiculous amount of work. So I don't envy Orange having to make 6 more characters, right? Somebody asked, Orange, are you going to go off the poll with the rest of the character additions? And Orange says, for the first few characters, yeah. So this is the poll they're talking about. This was, back in January. Miro wanted to know who people wanted in the game first. And it's a little ambiguous because the poll was split up. So he said that he'll most likely do the most popular characters first. So it's most likely, and take this with a grain of salt, it's most likely Tanaka and Pav will end up being the first characters added. And then after that, Miro will see. Miro has suggested that some of the characters will have unique mechanics, so they won't function exactly the same way. It could be as simple as like, Marco has his unique punches and Olivia has her wheelchair. Well, I say simple in quotation marks, right? They might work a little different, so it's not as simple as just giving them unique abilities and then pushing them out the door. But yeah, so someone asked specifically here, do you have any ideas on how Pav and Tanaka would work as party members? Aaron says, I have some ideas. Pav's skills would need some reworking, but I'm leaning towards making Tanaka a clean slate character, somewhat similar to the Deprived class in Dark Souls. I do have an interesting gimmick in mind for him, though, that would make his playthrough a bit different. And he says probably he won't have any skills, but not sure yet. But he definitely needs tons of personalized near-death scenes. Around every corner, someone/something wants to kill Tanaka. Tanaka must die mode. And also, about Pav's Moonscorch design. Somebody asked, you mentioned a bit ago you had an underwhelming Moonscorch design of Pav. Will that be in the next update? And Aaron says, not sure, not planned, but depends on how fast I get the planned stuff done. This was a little while ago. So, Pav currently doesn't have a Moonscorch in the game, but Miro does have one he's designed, but he wasn't happy with it. Yeah, so maybe no Pav Moonscorch this time. Again, this was a while ago. This was after the laptop exploded. But this was still like, a few weeks ago he said this, so who knows? This is talking about upcoming content. In regards to saving as many people as possible. So people were asking about how in the endings, right? In the endings, there's, you basically choose between killing everybody and you survive, saving everybody else and you die, right? The spoilers. And people have always asked for an ending where everybody can survive. And usually Orange says that he doesn't want that because then everybody will want to get that ending. He wants there to be a hard choice. A lot of people want it. So Miro says, In regards to saving as many people as possible, in the update pipeline, I have a feature that will probably prevent you from saving even more characters, I'm afraid. Not sure if that feature makes it to the next update or not. Depends on how long it'll take to make the other stuff happen first. It's probably going to make it harder to save everybody in the future, which is actually hilarious. So, good job, guys. I have been thinking about a possible happy ending too, where you can save everybody, yourself included, but we'll see. Too many ideas for updates. And he says, I'd like at least one more ending route, but I haven't ironed out some of the story details that could make it possible. We may have an update where you can, in the future, it may be possible to save everybody, but by that stage, it's going to be a lot harder to do that. A lot harder. So this is about the contest winner. So you may remember a little while ago, they had an enemy design contest where people on the Discord could design an enemy as a picture or text and then submit it. And then everybody else in the Discord would vote for which one they liked. And the one with the most votes got into the game. Somebody asked, is that enemy? It was Apotheosis, that one. It was this one here, which looks so sick. So sick. It's such a sick design. And that was by Ardent Sideburns on the Discord. And I've got his art station here. I will link this in the video description as well, but there it is in chat if you want to go check him out. Somebody asked, is that going to be in the next update? Aaron says, yes, definitely need to try and squeeze Apotheosis in there. Too bad I lost the area assets I was planning to have the thing appear in. So Apotheosis was going to be in a unique area, but that got exploded. So it seems, so that sort of suggests that Apotheosis was going to appear in one of the existing areas that were tweaked, because those were all the things that were lost. But now who knows where Apotheosis is going to appear? We don't know anything else about what the fight is going to be like, whether it's like a full boss, whether it's just, maybe there's a few of them in this area or anything like that. So, and this was, people were asking Orange about what new scenes were going to be coming to the game. Somebody specifically asked, like, August Gaming, thank you for asking about Caligura. We stand Caligura here. Are there any scenes focused on Caligura? And Orange said, probably not. More like playable characters, which is disappointing to hear, guys. I know I can hear your hearts breaking right now, but he may end up getting some new scenes where we can find him more, because right now, he's very difficult to find. If you play as Levi, you can't even find him until he moon scorches, right? So yeah, Orange says he needs someone to chill during nights. So we may end up getting a couple of new Caligura placements during the week, which would be very, very useful for actually getting him early, right? Because he's a tough one to find, old Caligura, I'll tell you that much. Yeah, so somebody asked, are you planning on doing more setup boss battles? So like Sergal or Moonless that are a bit special. And Orange says, yes, there's at least one coming, but whether you have to fight it or not depends on certain RNG. Sounds pretty awful concept on paper when I put it like that, but I think it'll be cool. And of course, Miro is being pretty cagey about it. It depends on RNG. I wonder what that means. This is just a guess, of course. This is just a guess. So don't take this as like, I know something that I don't, because I don't. It could be like a fishing boss, right? And that's technically RNG, isn't it? So finally, for upcoming content, I've shown this off on stream a few times because I just love this, right? Handsome Black Caleb. Let's go. Our boy. He's been yassified. Black Caleb has been yassified. We win. We win, Black Caleb stands. So this was posted a long time ago, and I've shown this on stream a few times because I just love this, right? Yeah, I'll zoom right in so we can get a good look at his handsome mug. Black Caleb, as you may know, is involved with the Man in Black that you can find in Rare's Realm, who has a lot of very interesting information about Ulmir that we don't hear anywhere else. And you'll notice that it's sort of hard to see, but you can see the Ulmir engravings on his face. And you can see his face is becoming more human-like. What people are thinking, and I'm thinking this too, maybe there's going to be an extended Black Caleb questline where he sort of slowly turns into the Man in Black. How it's going to end up? Are we going to actually have the Man in Black proper in our party? Is Black Caleb just going to look like a weirdo? We don't know. This is all we've seen. But I'm pretty keen. I hope this is in the next update. When Miro posted this, I hadn't made my first Sulfur video, and so I decided to rush my next Sulfur video to get it out because I thought the update was coming. And this looks like it's going to have some big fat sulfur lore. So I'm like, I got to get my video out. Somebody asked, are you open to buffing the contestants? So when you fight the contestants when they're human, they're pretty weak because they're just they're humans, right? And you can kill them in a couple of turns pretty easily for the most part. There are some exceptions like Marina, you got to be really careful. And August has some nasty attacks, but otherwise they're not really that hard. And Orange responds, yeah, you mean for fights? I guess a bit. They're kind of fragile on purpose though, showing the player characters are not that much stronger than anything else wandering the streets. So they're kind of weak on purpose, so I don't expect many buffs to the different contestant fights. People expected them to be sort of like boss fights, but that doesn't seem to be the intention at all. They seem to be on purpose really quite weak. And people were asking, are you going to be focusing on Termina for a while? Because people often ask how long is this going to get updated for? Like what content is coming, that sort of thing. And Orange says, Termina will be the main focus, but I'll be starting a new project soonish. These games take ages to make, so I've got to get the ball rolling soon or it'll be too long between new games. And someone responded, I see, I hope you come around to making each of the contestants playable, although I understand if you can't due to time. And Orange says, I made the decision for that once I know how much that work entails. All the characters in the game so far got implemented gradually as the game got bigger. I want to see just how long it takes to make one new character playable with all the events, texts, and systems. It's probably a lot, but it might be less than I'm afraid of. So unfortunately, it seems that if it does take too much work, we may not actually get each contestant playable. I hope that isn't the case, but if it ends up taking too long, then it will end up detracting from the next game Miro's working on. And it's sort of like a cost benefit thing, right? Because technically, Termina is finished, right? It's right now, you could leave it and you could say, this is a completed game. It has some polishing, obviously. You know, there's some stuff that you can say, oh, I'd like this or that added. But you know, you could leave it here and it would be like, okay, this isn't a complete experience. If Miro did do that, it would be disappointing. I won't lie, but I could understand why. If that means we get a new game sooner, I'd be like, oh, you know what? If that means we got Fear and Hunger 3 or whatever the next game is a year sooner, it's like, man, I don't know. I think I might take that deal. I think I might take that deal. But you know, we'll see. We'll see. You know, it maybe we'll end up doing it, right? So there was a discussion about just sort of tension in the game, how tense it is overall. So somebody said, honestly, more death events would be cool. Add tension and pronounce how difficult it is to survive the festival. Because you know how many things just straight up kill you, right? Like the pose straight up kills you, the pitfalls. But also you've got other characters getting killed, like how Caligura kills some other characters or Needles kills other characters. Right now, as you get further into the game, it's more weighted at the front, and there's a bit less of that as the game goes on. And so, especially when you've been playing for a while, the game doesn't feel as tense. And yeah, Orange says, I see that as one of the bigger flaws in the game currently. The game needs more high-stakes situations and tension between characters where things can end up badly. And yeah, someone said, at first time playing does feel really tense due to sheer atmosphere, which is impressive. But yeah, in the long run, it could use more X or Y or both die situations. So the perfect example of that is the situation where Pav, Marco, and Tanaka interrupt each other in the entrance to the city. At that point, if you don't interrupt that, Marco and Tanaka die. If you do interrupt that, you have to choose between them and Pav. Currently, there's a couple of situations like that, but there's not many. And Mira says, yes, I'm happy with the first impressions the game gives, but with the many characters, the game is kind of meant to be replayed, and that's why it requires more scenes that change the course of events. And this is talking about that there's a new difficulty coming, likely in the next update. Not guaranteed, but likely in the next update. Because in the first game, there was multiple difficulty levels, including one called Terror and Starvation. That's just the base game, but harder. In the first game, there were endings unique to Terror and Starvation, but whether that's the case in Termina, well, we don't have any new endings yet, so who knows? So somebody asked, isn't Masso mode the equivalent to Terror and Starvation? Orange says, Masso mode will inherit all the Terror and Starvation additions too, so Masso mode will end up getting harder after Terror and Starvation comes out. But I think Masso will stay a thing of its own with the rare timer and all that. So currently now in Masso mode, if you stay outside for too long, you get instantly moon scorched. So that's going to stay unique to Masso mode. And this was just talking about comparing the games and just the difficulty in Termina. So which place is much scarier, Preheval or the Dungeons of Fear and Hunger? And Miro says, I think the dungeons by a large Martian, but that's kind of intended too. The dungeons were meant to be the worst the world has to offer after all. And somebody said, it doesn't help, I never felt powerful in Fear and Hunger 1, but they did in Termina, and I can understand that feeling. And Orange says, I hope to remedy this a bit with Terror and Starvation. I want Termina to live up to the relentless tagline in some trailers. So in some of the trailers, it says relentless, one of the words it says. And Miro wants that feeling to come to the game where the enemies are just relentless. It just never stops. And yeah, Mira says that, yeah, like, it feels like you get overpowered really quickly in Termina if you know what you're doing. And somebody asked, are you planning on weakening it a bit? Or is that not your main priority? So they're asking, have you planned on nerfing some stuff in the game? And Orange says, I don't like nerfing things too much. I'd rather create challenges that are up to the tool set you have in the game. It's a tough thing to balance right now because I have to be mindful of people with zero knowledge too. Knowledge really is everything in this game. That's why a new difficulty level is probably the best way to go about it. Then I can only think about more experienced players and create things that challenge them. That's often the issue in games, is when you've got such a wide fan base. You've got people who are brand new to the game, don't know anything about it. They come in and the first time they've ever played a game like this, and then you're trying to balance it for people who have, I've got 200 plus hours in the game. Some people have like 600 hours in the game. It's a completely different experience at that point. How can you possibly balance a game for those two at the same time? You can't do it. So adding the new difficulty level, Terror and Starvation, is 100% the best way to go about it. Because that way you can just say, new players, don't play Terror and Starvation. Just don't do it. You'll get bodied. You won't have fun. Experienced players, here you go. This one's for you. You're going to get bodied and you're going to enjoy it. And we're like, yes, we will enjoy it. Somebody pointed out glass shards. Glass shards are an item that you can use to blind enemies, and they were nerfed. Horan says, yeah, sometimes nerfing just happens. And this was an interesting discussion about drugs in the game. Right now, there's a few different drugs. We've got wild dagger, we've got tobacco, we've got heroin, we've got pep pills. And somebody asked, have you considered adding cigarettes? Mira said that cigarettes I've been meaning to add since forever, especially for Dan, but I doubt I'll add withdrawals for those. They're just limited item and that balances them out enough. And somebody said, it's kind of silly how every character instantly becomes a heroin addict after taking it once. Because once you take heroin in the game, you get a really big temporary buff to all your stats, but after you take it, then you're addicted, right? Whenever you're not on heroin, you get a big debuff to your stats. It's really, really quite bad. And yeah, Mira said, I actually think it's great gameplay balance. I really like how heroin works in this game. You really need to consider the negatives versus the positives. And, somebody offered a suggestion of how to change it up, and Mira's like, no, I'm fine with it. It's not like anywhere close to realistic anyway. If the game tried to mimic real heroin more closely, it would probably work the other way around. You shoot heroin and become totally incapable of doing anything for a good while. Only once it wears off, you'll be able to function again. The reasons for drastic measures that come with heroin in the game is partly because I definitely don't want to encourage anyone taking that IRL. I don't want to hear in 10 years how some poor bastard tried heroin for the first time because it was such a cool item in Fear and Hunger 2. Miro says, drugs are for losers. Stay in school, kids. So they're talking about the song Desperation, and here, we'll just put that on. The siren part, so this part now. The part. Someone said the siren part is so good. And Aaron says, yeah, that's my voice. I think the fact that it's someone's voice instead of a real siren gives it a bit weirder feel. It does. And you know what that means, guys? If you speed it up, then you can hear what Miro's voice sounds like. Marriages. Somebody asked, are you adding marriage in the update? And Orange says, not sure. It won't be coming anytime soon, even if it would one day. Got a miles-long to-do list for Termina, I'm afraid. Someone said it simply wouldn't fit. And Orange is like, I kind of feel that too. But nothing's set in stone. Maybe I'll get inspiration for it one day. Can't wait for the sex update, yeah. Fear and Hunger Termina, sex update. So, this is about Fear and Hunger 1. Someone said, Fear and Hunger 1 ended up as a very good game when the update ceased. And Miro responded, it'll still get some updates, I'm sure. I've been meaning to fix things, and I do have some things fixed already in the work in progress version. I just haven't jumped back into Fear and Hunger lately because every time I do, I end up making new stuff too, and a quick update turns into weeks/months worth of work. So in future, we may end up getting a full Fear and Hunger 1 update. So that's a pretty cool idea to get brand new content for Fear and Hunger 1. At the very least, it seems we'll definitely get some bug fixes. And Lord knows that game has some bugs. Okay, so this is a bit of a longer one. So the original discussion was about why the first half of Fear and Hunger 1 and the second half of Fear and Hunger 1 are so different. So if you recall, the first half is crawling through the dungeon, slowly getting further and further down. And then the second half, you get to Mahab and it just sort of stops, right? It changes into like a kind of like a party builder It's all about figuring out how to tackle these bosses, organizing your party, gearing up your party. Whereas the first part is like, just get through the dungeon. And somebody asked, was that divide intentional? And Miro said, yeah, the divide was always intended. The early game was meant to be more roguelike experience until you got to Mahab. Originally, I didn't even want to give people save points early on in the game because I wanted to encourage the roguelike mentality. There was only the Crow Mauler bed, which was there just because I thought it was a fun little beginner trap. But everyone played the game like a JRPG and tried their best to save scum the early sections. So I thought I'd try to support different playstyles more and added more save points too. I added those too, so Crow Mauler wouldn't fall victim in all the save scumming. Like people tried to fish out the lucky headshots against Mauler. If they failed, they'd just restart the game over and over until they got their free safe bed. Later parts of the game were meant to open up, and the whole prior game was supposed to become more exploratory. Like you could get shortcuts to early sections of the dungeons too. I'm pretty happy with the game, honestly. Obviously, I need to go back and fix some technical problems, but I'm guessing you were asking more on the content side. There's some clumsiness in the game here and there, but I think that's part of the experience. I've noticed that polishing some aspects can lead to too rounded an experience. And he doesn't mean bugs there. It's pretty good time capsule of what I was able to make at the time, and if I had to remake the game again, I doubt I'd be able to capture its essence properly. I'm not in a similar mental state, for one. And some idiot here who talks in memes said, I'm not in a similar mental state, for one. I knew Fear and Hunger was an it's so over mindset, and Termina was we're so back. Fear and Hunger 3 will be it's so over, real. And Miro graciously responded, I don't believe in the cycle theory. Things are more of a spiral. Things are spiraling deeper. You make it sound like you won't survive developing 3. And Miro says, actually, I'm not in really a dark place currently. Maybe I gotta wait for some midlife crisis within 20 years to make the true sequel the game deserves. So you hear that, guys? We'll get Fear and Hunger 3 in 20 years. So Fear and Hunger 3 in 2040. Put it on your calendars. We'll get there. Guaranteed. If it doesn't come out by then, we have to hold Miro to account. Where is it, Miro? You said it would be here. Where's your midlife crisis? And this was super cool. So people were digging up old Miro I think Miro posted a bunch of old drawings. This was one of them. Actually, I'll show you the picture here, right? These were 2 playable characters that were coming. Now, you may recognize this one as a unique armor set you can get in-game. But originally, the Penance Knight, so that was the Penance armor, the Penance Knight was supposed to be a playable character, as well as this character here. Platygems here asked Miro about it. I have another question if you don't mind. Did you plan to make a playable priestess at some point? This art of yours kind of looks like portraits in the game. And there is this priestess, Celine, that's mentioned only once in game. She was meant to be a virgin mage character, a new playable class / character. I was planning to add 2 more classes in some post-release update. Virgin Mage and Penance Knight. I scrapped those ideas because the 4 characters had become iconic enough at that point, and the whole story had this cyclical feel to it thanks to the 4 main characters and 4 new gods reigning in Mahab. Penance Knight became an armor you can get in the game instead. And somebody asked, would there have been a backstory to the Penance Knight? Or would he have been a nameless criminal or something like that? And Orange said, I'm sure there would have been some story to him, of course, but I didn't think too much of it yet. In my mind, he was going to be a hunk-like character, like in Resident Evil. And Hunk is sort of like a semi-anonymous, just hardcore action hero type guy. Really, really cool, really tough character that just goes in guns blazing sort of deal. And then Platygems asked, did you think up her skills and backstory, or did you abandon the idea early on? And Orange said, I had some ideas and would like to use those ideas somewhere eventually. So we may see our priestess come back at some point, which is really cool to think about. And our friend Frapollo said, since we're on the topic, just to be sure, is phase step intended to be usable? I'll show you what phase step is, right? And I'll link this video in the description as well. This is a video by my friend Allbones Jones.
Grab the empty scroll from Nostradamus' lair, then teach yourself phase step. If you draw the sword from the left side, quickly phase step 6 times left and up once. You can leave the mines before they collapse.
Like you could boom. There you go. You teleport. I think it's 4 squares in the direction you're facing. And Orange says it's break the game magic. I don't think the game ever mentions about its existence, so you need to know about it in meta ways to even start breaking the game, so I think it's fine. And Frapollo says, well, the game does actually mention it. It's in the keyboard controls because you have to set, it has its own unique keybind. I think it's C button by default. And Ron says, oh yeah, it does. But if you miraculously find out about it during your own in the first playthroughs, then just go crazy with it. It was meant to be a pretty hidden thing. I like throwing in a couple of little lore things here and there. This isn't that important in the grand scheme of things, but I like little lore nods, right? You know me, I'm a lore head. Durok asked, does the full view of Rare refer to Okamoto Taro, which is an anime hymn? You can see the similarities because Rare's got that half moon mask, and you can sort of see it. You can sort of see the half moon mask in these sort of things here, right? And Oren says, nope, moon crescent moon over sun, or whatever Rare is depicting, is ages old imagery. Not sure where it dates back, but it's been drawn for 1,000+ years probably. Miro's trying to cover his tracks here. You can see, not that moon crescent moon over sun, and then he's like, oh, I shouldn't mention that, or whatever Rare is depicting. I'm telling you guys, Rare is a sulfur cultist. You know, because you've got the sulfur cultists, they've got the half moon paint over their face. It's the same thing. Rare is corrupted by sulfur. This is deep lore cuts here, deep lore. And I thought this was worth mentioning, right? People were talking about how complex it is to use RPG Maker and how buggy it is. And Orange, he'd had enough. I don't think the bugginess is guaranteed. I've played plenty of RPG Maker games with custom systems made entirely from the engine's events and functions. That's pretty much the only way people made custom systems back in RPG Maker in 2003 days. The bugginess is more because I'm the one making the stuff and I'm just learning things as I go. And someone said, oh, don't beat yourself up over it. It's DIY engine, right? And Orange says, I'm not beating myself up. It's just the truth. That doesn't mean I wouldn't be glad with what I've gotten done. I'm just tired of hearing how everyone shifts the blame on the engine when RPG Maker is actually more capable than a lot more if you know what you're doing. It's a very frequent comment I get. Imagine the game if it wasn't made on RPG Maker. The game would be a bigger mess if I learned how to code everything from scratch on a new engine while still trying to be as ambitious with the features. So he's had enough. He's put his foot down. No more dunking on RPG Maker, right? No more dunking. And lucky last, I have been thinking about a possible happy ending too, where you can save everybody, yourself included. But we'll see. Too many ideas for updates. I'd like to have at least one more ending route, but I haven't ironed out some of the story details that could make it possible. So there. Mira has been considering an ending where you save everybody. A happy ending. These games don't get happy endings. This has to be some sort of trick, right? It has to be a trick. Has there been a single happy ending in this? No, there hasn't. There hasn't been. So I don't trust this. I don't trust this at all. But yes, this has been the news roundup for this month. I guess we'll see you again in 2 months. Let me know what you think. Did you enjoy the news? What were you most excited about for the upcoming update? I'm pretty excited for the new areas. I'm really excited to see Apotheosis if it makes it in. I am so keen for fishing. Holy hell. I'd be happy if the update was just fishing. But it's gonna be like 3 areas or something ridiculous and like a whole bunch of enemies. So there's gonna be so much cool stuff and maybe a new boss and maybe a new moon scorch and all this crazy stuff. So I think it's gonna be worth the wait. What are you guys most excited for? Let me know. Make sure to check out all the links down in the comments. My name is Morley Duke, and I'll see you next time.